I feel like I'm smearing my mascara everywhere now. Hi everyone, Kate here, and this week we will be discussing how the Edwardians celebrated Halloween. That's right, it's going to be a spooky video this week. The research for this video comes from a number of Halloween-specific books, as well as some general entertaining books from the era. I'm actually not going to be just talking about the Edwardian period today, as I'm going to be talking about part of the 1910s as well, which is sort of the pre-war era that doesn't really have a name, and it tends to just get lumped in with the Edwardian era. So, on a side note, if you're looking for historical sources about Halloween, you actually need to search for Hallowe'en in a keyword search. If you omit the apostrophe, you will not find nearly the same amount of material. Now, all the Halloween books I found tended to focus heavily on throwing a Halloween party. As hosting a party was a more widespread practice than, say, throwing flour in somebody's face, that's what I'm going to be focusing on today. Halloween parties during the Edwardian era were created for both children and adults. They were usually held in the evening starting around 7 or 8 o'clock, and consisted of a light supper and plenty of games. Costumes and decorations were essential, as was some sort of spooky theme. Sometimes the theme was just Halloween in general, or it could be more specific, such as a black cat party or a ghost party. My favorite party theme has to be the Halloween nut party from the Jolly Halloween book. Everybody had to come to this party dressed as some sort of nut, walnuts, peanuts, coconuts, and then you played party games that were themed around nuts. That one gets 10 points for originality. I really want a nut party. Somebody invite me to one. Nut parties aside, a lot of these celebrations included similar elements. So let's break it down into 4 categories. The decorations, the food, the costumes, and the games or activities. The Edwardians really went all out when it came to party decor. For color schemes, black and yellow was the usual recommendation. Low lighting was essential, and the spooky decorations were plentiful. The subject of these decorations was fairly in line with modern themes. There were black cats and witches and ghosts, and of course, pumpkins. Carved jack-o'-lanterns were an extremely popular Halloween decoration. Apples, squash, and sometimes even cucumbers were used for carving jack-o'-lanterns, but pumpkins did remain the most popular choice. Larger pumpkins could have candles put inside to be used as a light source, but often they were just dotted around the room as general decorations. They could also be used for other purposes such as place markers or candy bowls. Cut paper was another material that was often used to make decorations. It was relatively cheap and easy to work with, making it a popular decorating material for all sorts of parties. For Halloween in particular, black card was often cut or purchased in spooky shapes such as bats, cats, and witches. You also had colorful crepe paper hung in garlands and puffs, and sometimes used as jack-o'-lanterns over top of gas or electric lights. Which sounds like a major fire hazard to me, but they didn't seem to worry about that. I guess Halloween is a time for danger. Oh, I'm getting raccoon eyes. Give me a second. I'll be back. Oh, there we go. That's better. I don't know how long that was smeared for, so I'm just gonna have to leave that footage in. Oh well. My bad. I shouldn't have used my new cake mascara. My cake mascara formulation still needs a bit of work. Where were we? Back to the decorations. Natural materials such as apples, nuts, flowers, and leaves were also brought in to adorn the party room. While the Edwardians really were full on with their decorating, a lot of these decorations were relatively inexpensive and wouldn't have produced the same waste that a modern Halloween party might. At least the waste that it did produce would have been biodegradable, so I don't think that was their intention, but happy side effect of no plastic. Am I smeared again? We're just gonna live with it. Halloween parties always had some sort of yummy treats. A casual luncheon or high tea was typical rather than a full fancy sit-down meal, which was in keeping with the informal and slightly wild nature of the holiday. The menus were often unique to the occasion and consisted of food that would not normally have been served together. There was a lot of variation in terms of the dishes recommended, and the menu partly depended on if the party was intended for adults or children. Here are a few sample menus from the era. Served was often arranged or decorated to resemble various spooky things. I love the description of a Halloween menu in the book 1,000 Ways to Please a Husband from 1917. Yeah, I read this book online and I loved it so much that I bought a copy. It's utterly charming. I'm gonna read it to you. The supper, decorative as well as delicious, was all upon the table. Little individual pumpkin pies on paper doilies stood beside each place. The salad caused much delight among the guests, who at the invitation of the witches had now removed their masks. A large red apple, with a face cut on the outside, had been hollowed out, and the salad was within. On top of the apple was a round wafer with a marshmallow on it to represent a hat. The hat was further decorated with a stick-up of stick candy on one side. The apple stood on a leaf of lettuce with a yellow salad dressing necktie. The favor boxes, which were under the witches, were filled with candy corn, while the popcorn balls, placed on a platter, had features of chocolate fudge and bonnets of frilled paper. That sounds so cute! Costumes were another essential part of the evening. While not every party required guests to dress up, costume suggestions were usually included on the invitation. If there was a party theme, guests were often asked to dress in something in keeping with that theme. Otherwise, the guests would often opt for something a little more generic, such as a ghost or a witch. Regardless of theme, creativity was key. While some affluent people living in a larger center might have been able to rent a costume, most people wouldn't have been able just to go to the store and buy a costume off the rack. People tended to make their costumes instead from things they found lying around their house. Sometimes a girl would just wear her normal party dress and then add some sort of themed element to it, such as pinning a black paper cat to her skirt. Paper was often used for costumes for much the same reasons that it was used for decorations. It was cheap and easy to work with. Making a paper costume was also a lot quicker than hand sewing a costume out of fabric. Although speaking of fabric, the old white sheet ghost was actually a fairly popular choice as well. The games and activities that were enjoyed is probably where the most difference lies between a modern Halloween party and a party from the early 1900s. While there was a casual and, as I said, slightly wild atmosphere to these parties, there still often was quite a lot of ceremony and play acting involved in the evening's activities. Skits, readings, and spooky stories were a popular inclusion. Telling stories and putting on plays was always a very popular activity back when people had to make their own entertainment. If the party guests were dressed up, they often tried to stay in character. Having someone play a pretend fortune teller was popular, but even without such a character, a lot of the games played often had an element of foretelling the future. As Halloween parties tended to be mixed affairs filled with young people, a lot of these predictions centered around who one would marry. I think the flirtatious nature of a lot of these games would have very much appealed to young people, who would have had to normally been a little more reserved in their courtships. As with everything, most of these prediction games were done with things that could be found around the house, such as apples, nuts, candles, and mirrors. Even the traditional bobbing for apples could include a romantic element. The apples would be carved with the initials of the guests and then divided into two groups, one for boys and one for girls. The guests would then try to catch their desired apple with their teeth. Scandalous. If you want some more information about some of these prediction games, I made a video a few years back trying a few of these games out for myself. Of course, the games I didn't try out included some of the more dangerous activities, such as those that involved, say, playing with melted lead or fire. There was a lot of fire involved in some of these prediction games. The Snapdragons was a very popular one, which involved setting raisins or little bits of tinfoil with a fortune inside a bowl of alcohol, lighting it on fire, and then the guests would reach into this burning bowl and try to grab the raisins or the bits of tinfoil with their fingers. The goal was to get one without burning yourself. Good times. There was also the ever-popular jumping a lighted candle game, in which a guest would literally jump over a lit candle. The aim of that game being to not knock over the candle or blow it out when you're jumping over. Which sounds like a great game to play while wearing long skirts and paper costumes. Sometimes I wonder how they survived. I really do. Well, that's it for this week. I hope you enjoyed this spooky look at Halloween's past. Let me know down in the comments what you're doing for Halloween, if you're doing anything this year. I know this is kind of a weird year, 2020. Well, as always, thank you for watching, and I will see you guys next time. Happy Halloween, everybody. This video is made possible through the generous support of my Patreon members. Thank you. There we go. Pretty sure this is a child's hat. It doesn't really fit my head. I don't know how Edwardians fit all their hair under witches' hats. They definitely wore witches' hats. At parties, but I don't know how they fit their big hairdos underneath. I don't understand. Halloween parties during the Edwardian era. Right, remember what decade we're in. I really, really love Halloween. I got my hat and my knitted pumpkin in the background. I don't know if you can see it. Yeah, there we go. I made a pumpkin last year. Got lights too. Look at this. Look at that. Yeah, proper YouTuber background right there. There's lights. Okay. Yeah, this mascara needs a bit of work. I did almost set a guest on fire at a party once. My tea light holder like caught on fire, and it was right beside this guy's arm, and he like just about got singed. It was fine though. That wasn't even a Halloween party. Who, at the invitation of the witches, had now removed their masks. Oh, baby! I'm reading! You want to be in the video? Come here. Come here. Come up? Yes! Hi! I can't kiss you, I got lipstick on. This is Aggie. It's short for Agatha Christie. Well, it was supposed to be. It's actually short for aggravation now. Okay, this mascara is just gonna be under my eyes. If I look extra tired, can we just blame it on the mascara that's getting everywhere? It's not my face, it's the mascara. Trying to cackle. Oh man, I am no Margaret Hamilton. Okay, well, let's call that a wrap.